Shalom everybody, it's Kalila Kelly, your Irish Stew, still with my face mask on. So classy, I know. That's the problem when you have cold sores, right? Or alternatively when you're a pro-Palestine supporter. But not kidding, not kidding. Really interesting news today from Israel actually. Apparently, sheikhs, Muslim leaders, Arab leaders and elders of certain clans in the West Bank, in Hebron, ruled by the Palestinian Authority, a very corrupt power structure that's been put in place for decades in the West Bank. These sheikhs, these leaders, have written a letter signed by some others in the region saying that they want to secede from the Palestinian Authority and they want to recognize Israel and join the Abraham Accords. This is according to MSN.com. And here you can see a beautiful picture of various houses and a suburb really on a hill, presumably in the West Bank in Palestine, Israel area. And in exchange, they would be allowed to have people from Hebron enter Israel for work, and they would establish an emirate run by the sheikhs. You've got tribal leaders with the West Bank saying the two-state solution is dead, because the Israelis could never allow it after what Hamas did on October 7, Mr. McPherson said. For him to admit that and then to write an open letter to the Israeli economic minister saying we want you to help us, work with us, this is a huge step forward. He says there are other sheikhs, tribal leaders, who control hundreds or thousands of Palestinian people who would also agree to this if Israel were agreeable. I don't know how this is going to play out, but this is really interesting news, really interesting development. It's basically saying that there are Palestinian Arabs in the West Bank who are sick to death of the corrupt Palestinian Authority. They are sick to death of Hamas. They can see, as their brothers and brethren in Jordan and in Saudi Arabia and other areas have seen, that Israel is the future of the region. Israel is not going anywhere. The crazy Westerners, the crazy extremists in the universities and in the left-wing think tanks and groups agitating across Western countries that are obsessed with Palestine and that hate Israel, those guys are the ones that are falling behind and that are behind the times. I've said this in other videos. It is forward-thinking Arabs like these sheikhs who can see and acknowledge finally that Israel isn't going anywhere. The Jews are not going anywhere. It's also really interesting because historically speaking, when Jews were migrating back to the area, to the Palestinian area, as it was called then, under the British and the Turks and everyone else, when Jews were emigrating back over the last hundreds of years, they would often create wealth and abundance where they would settle. And that in turn would invite and bring in more Arabs from the surrounding areas, like from Syria or from Jordan, who are looking for work. So historically speaking and economically speaking throughout the whole region, wherever there are Jews, money, success, economy, positivity and life flourishes. That's actually what happens when Jews come into the region. And it's really, really interesting that these sheikhs can see Israel isn't going anywhere. The Arabs and Palestinians who live in Israel, who are technically Israeli Arabs, right? They have the best life quality, and particularly Christian Arabs in Israel have the highest education rates among the women of Arab women in the area. That it is undeniable that Arabs have it better living with Jews than without. It is undeniable. And these sheikhs are being bold and brave because they can see that Israel is being bold and brave and strong and not giving in. That's actually what's happening. And that strength is what gets respect in the Middle East, apparently. I'm not a Middle Easterner, but my Jewish brethren who are from the Middle East specifically tell me that that is the case. That is the attitude you have to have. And certainly some of my friends from Israel who are from Middle Eastern background, Mizrahi, for example, they are very tough. They're very different to, with all due respect, to Ashkenazi Jews who were Europeanized after being expelled into Europe by the Romans 2,000 years ago, right? And have been roaming and wandering around Eastern Europe mostly and Western Europe, you know, for thousands of years, basically against their will. So I think this is really fantastic news, and I really hope that a better future can be paved with forward-thinking Arab leaders like this and with Jews and Israelis. And I say this as a Jew. I say this as someone who might want to live in Israel one day, certainly to visit. I have nothing against Arabs or Palestinians or Muslims living in the same area. If I was to become an Israeli, I wouldn't give a shit if someone is an Arab or a Muslim or not. What I would care about is, do they want to live peacefully and happily? Do they want their children to flourish and to succeed? And these sheikhs in the West Bank are opening their eyes and saying, yeah, we're sick of the death, the terrorism, the Islamism, the sociopathy. We want our children to live, we want our children to thrive, and we do that for once in our history as Palestinians. For once we actually say, you know what, let's give peace a genuine shot. Let's stop rejecting all the peace officers that countless political leaders have been offering us over the last nearly 100 years, and let's sit down and actually vote for peace this time. Jews have been voting for peace since day one. Israelis have been asking for peace since day one, happy to make peace, happy to lay down arms and focus on building success. And it is always, every single time it has been the Palestinians or the Palestinian leadership that have rejected peace, that have rejected economic progress and success. But at some point, some people, not all, but clearly like these sheikhs, at some point they're going to go, we are really sick and tired of being broke or poor or things not working out for us. Our people need to eat. Our people need to work. Our people need money in the bank. And to do that in today's modern society is you have to have a job and a running economy. A bit hard to do that when you've got psychopaths like Hamas running around, ruining everything with their corruption and their greed and their obsession with death and martyrdom, right? And sacrificing their people. And similarly with the West Bank, like the Palestinian Authority, from what I've heard, I don't know everything, of course. What I have heard is that they're very corrupt. Very corrupt. You know, and people go missing and beatings happen and disappearances into police cells, etc., etc. And I think they're sick of it. So stuff is going on in the Middle East. Stuff is going on with Israel. I feel like there's this new movement that has been planned for a while and it's starting to emerge, and it's a different energy, it's a different path, and it's going in a different direction. And the people who are left behind in the old way of thinking about Israel, for example, are the Westerners, the Western countries, the bleeding hearts, the liberals. I think that they are completely behind the game, completely behind and out of step with what is happening and unfolding across the Middle East. And I think it's really interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if Israel leads, really truly leads a new League of Nations, a new way of doing things for that part of the world. While Western countries like France, like Britain, certainly like Germany, Spain, they're going down the toilet. They are going into shit. They are turning into cesspools. They are diminishing and goose-stepping into their own suicide. As Douglas Murray once said, that the strange death of Europe is like a form of bizarre suicide that the West is obsessed with, destroying its own culture, destroying its history, allowing in masses of illegal migrants to come flooding in, 80% of whom are fighting age men, single men. It's absolute bullshit. It's a rort. The West is really, really just shit at the moment, and going downhill. And ironically, although it may not seem like that to its detractors, Israel and its cohort and its group of leaders, particularly Muslim leaders who are forward thinking and who can see how things are turning out, they are going to change the Middle East. Mark my words. Thank you so much. Shalom. Bye.